Hello, guys. Good morning. Please confirm that you can hear me so that we start. Okay. All right. I don't know who's privileged. Just give me a minute. All right. Up now. So let's see. So what we're doing today mostly is I want to take questions from you guys on areas where you are still confused or still in the dark. Let's try to make that clear, all right, so that everybody is on the same page, or at least close to the page where we are at. So I want to get your questions today, majorly, and we'll also talk about middlewares. We'll just learn more about middlewares. We'll try to create a very, very basic login middleware, very basic validator. All right, so just to get you familiar with that concept, because it's a very huge concept in Node.js, right? Very, very huge concept. So if you understand how middleware works, man, you've understood a lot. So we're going to talk about that more today. But then first, I would like to get questions so that we can get everybody on the same page. So if you have questions, areas where you are not comfortable or you are still confused, please bring it up now. Okay. The fact that all mics are still muted, would I say that's encouraging because it seems that everybody is good. All right, so I'm just going to kick off the lecture without wasting time. Okay, so let's try some middlewares. I always love starting from scratch so that everybody gets familiar with the bootstrapping process. So we're going to do npm init y, right? And we're going to create our models folder, views folder, controllers folder, MVC, and then we're going to have routes, and we're going to have me to where. Okay. So these are different folders that we are going to make use of. And then there's an SRC, and that's where all these guys go into, because they are all part of our source code in the sense. So I'll bring in views too. All right, so you have them inside SRC, and then we have our server.js outside. And we know that inside our SRC, we have our app.js. So this is the structure of our project. So what we want to do is for our server, HTTP plus to require HTTP. And then we want to say server equals create server. All right. You can do http.create server. You can actually do something like this, create server. Okay, that doesn't work with CommonJS, right? So let's use .create server. Okay. And then we'll leave that the handler is going to come from app. So you should be aware of by now. So we listen at the port we want to listen at, let's say 8,000. And then we see server to log server listening at that port. Okay. And then there's a package that we need to install. In fact, there are packages we need to install. So we need Express, npm I Express. We need Mongoose. All right. We need who's there again? NodeMon for dev, but dev is going to be dev dependency. We need .env. I think I introduced this package in the last class. I'm not sure I did, but I think I did so. So express mongoose.env for now. Then okay. So let's install these guys for now. And once that is done, we're going to install our dev dependency, which is NodeMon. So npm I NodeMon / save dev. Okay, NodeMon. All right. So I'm going to come to my app. I know in my app I need Express. So I'm going to say const Express equals require Express. Okay, require Express. What do we want to do? We want to create our app. So we call the Express function. And we say app.use because we want to make use of a middleware. All right, that's provided for us by Express. Express.json so that we can convert incoming requests to JSON. All right, so the body, okay, of every request, I want to make it JSON. All right, so that's what we're doing there. I think that's enough for now. And we could just, just take care of our home routes and say request response status code be 200.json. We're chaining here. We want to send a message that says application running. And now we can actually export module.exports app. Okay, so this module exports app. All right, so now that we have this in place, you can come here and make use of as our handler for the server, all right? And that should be fine. So we can go to our package.json and do some scripts. So we're going to say our start script should run node, all right, server.js. And then we'll say that our start dev script, all right, should run node mon server.js. Okay, so I think this should be fine. This could be anything, right? I usually tell you guys that this could be anything. So I could have said just watch, all right? Could have used any word there, but there are things that are popular in the ecosystem that you can just, adapt your code to fit. All right, but then you can do your stuff. All right, so we're going to say npm run watch, and let's see what happens. All right, so that was good. That worked fine. Okay, so I have our server running. And if we open Thunder Client and try to go for 8,000 get, status code is not a function. Okay, sorry. I should have done status, I think so. All right, so running again, let's try. And there you go. So we have message, application running. All right, so our server is set up. Now we can keep adding routes like that. But the truth is that Node.js or writing a server, it's more than just handling routes. All right, it has to do with your project structure, or else you write a code that is not maintainable. You write a code that nobody can even make use of after you're gone from the project. All right, so you have to be conscious of your folder structuring, how you structure your folder. All right, your naming conventions, stuff like that. Those are what make your server really solid. Okay, so where do we start from? Okay, a lot of the concepts are still alien. What can help would be a list of concepts to learn so we can refer to them as we progress in the learning experience. Okay, so when do you use URL parser? Does the ExpressJS middleware perform the same role as URL parser? All right, so I'm going to come back to your questions because I'm already teaching. But I came up with an idea. I know it's going to help a lot of persons. So let me see. Let me see. Right.
Hello, everyone. My name is.
So I'm going to I really think it's going to be helpful. So let me try get a reference to it. Oh, okay. I think I have it now. So there's a link I'm posting on the chat now. I actually pasted it on Slack, but I'm not sure a lot of persons looked at it. So check that. That will take you to my LinkedIn profile. So what I'm going to be doing now was inspired by the last class, but I'm not restricting it to what we're doing here. So making it public. That's my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to be posting cookbooks. All right. So I'll just pick up something that I think people would like to just know how to do. For instance, setting up a server. That's what this current post was about. It makes it very simple to set up. Then I'll pick up working with middlewares, handling authentication and stuff like that, and make it very simple. Configuring webpack, stuff like that. Just make it simple and then put it out there. All right. The thing is, I came to understand that if you have cookbooks or cheat sheets, right, it makes your life more easier as a beginner, right? Because you have all the steps laid out for you. You can just follow them and get the result done, right? If you follow that cookbook for, say, like twice or thrice, depending on yourself, right? It becomes part of you, and then you know how to do it yourself. Becomes like part of muscle memory, and then you know how to do it yourself, right? So that's what I'll be doing to ensure that these concepts are not alien. Because if it is just thought and you don't go back to revisit it, and there's no clear path, to reproducing the results, then it might not be that easy for you guys to assimilate it. All right. So yeah. And then again, there are a lot of persons who don't come to class. That's the truth. They don't come to class, and then they start asking questions on the Slack. All right. A lot of persons don't even go to YouTube to watch the content. So please just ensure that you're doing everything within your power to learn so that you can make our work easier. All right. Having said that, let's proceed. I hope you guys can see my screen. Okay, great. All right, so let's write some middlewares of our own. All right. Say we want to be able to log stuff to the console. There's a middleware called Morgan that helps us to log stuff to the console. Okay, so it's like the most popular logger that you find on the internet. All right. But you might ask, why do we need to log anything to the console? And that would be a very valid question. Why do I need to log anything to the console? The truth is that you want to not only log to the console, but you want to save request information. All right. So as people call your endpoints, all right, you want to be able to know what they are doing. Like, what URL did this person access? At what time did they access it? What was the cause of the error? Stuff like that. You want to log it. All right. So I'm going to be creating a simple logger middleware. And after creating that middleware, we're going to see how Morgan works. All right, which is the popular logger that a lot of persons use in their projects. We're going to see how that one works too. Okay. Let's go into our middleware and call it logger. All right, let's call it logger. Let's call it custom Morgan. All right. So what do we need here? Let's list the things we need. We need to be able to know, all right, we need to know the routes that was called, all right, or that was, you can use the word called, okay, or hit, the route that was hit, the endpoint that was hit. We need to be able to know that. We need to be able to know what time it was hit or called, all right? And then we need to be able to save that log, save the log to file, all right? We need to be able to save the file. And What might we need again? What might we need again? So let's make use of this for now. All right. So how do we write a middleware? If you remember the last time I told you that to write a middleware, it's simply a function, right? We're just going to call it, we can call it anything. Let's call it log or even custom Morgan. Okay. And we want to make this asynchronous because we're going to be doing some asynchronous work. So what do I want now at this point? I want to be able to tell who is visiting. So let's do rec res, all right? And then next is how you write a middleware. You always see the next. The custom middleware, you see the next here. Okay. So let's make it very simple. So log. So let's see how this works out. I'll take my custom guy, export it. So I want to do export. I can say module.export custom Morgan. All right, I hope this is good. Okay, so now I come in here to app.js and say, after converting, all right, I want to log who is visiting my site. So I'm going to use custom Morgan. All right, custom Morgan has been required from file. So fingers crossed, let's see if this would work. Get this all right, so let's hit the endpoint. So I'm going to hit that endpoint. And there you go. We have undefined, and our request is hanging. And if you can quickly guess why the request is hanging. So we have undefined and this guy. All right. So I think I spelled this wrongly. I spelled this wrongly. So let me get the right thing. So I'm going to do console.log, right? So I'm just going to log the request there. And then the request was hanging. And if you can quickly guess why, I told you that when you call a middleware or when you use a middleware, inside the implementation, you need to call next so that it gives the next handler, access to the request. After dealing with the request, it now passes it on to the next handler. All right. So that's why you need to call next. So I'm going to save now and let's try again. Immediately I hit the endpoint. You see that it went down to application running, which is the guy that's supposed to handle this. But before then, it logged the request to the console. So let me check for my base URL guy. How is it spelled? So we're looking for base URL. Base URL. Okay. I've seen it. So there you go. Base URL. All right. So I save. And let's try again. I'm going to hit this endpoint. And you see that this guy was logged. All right. Because it is the home routes. All right. So let's try to hit another endpoint. So I'm going to I'm going to go over to my app.js and just say books, for instance. And then I come back here and hit /books. Send. You see that we have /books. Okay. So that is it. Now let's make it more robust. Custom Morgan, I want to make it more robust. So what I want to do is I want to get the time, all right, the date and time where this person used my try to call the endpoint. So we're going to install a package for that. So I'm going to do PMI date FNS. All right. So instead of moment, so the popular library to use for time is moment, but moment is no longer being managed anymore. So you are advised to use other packages. Okay. So what we need to do now is to use format. All right. There's a format function that is exported from dates FNS. All right. So I want to use that. So what I'll do is I want to get the date and time. So the date time will be result of calling format, but then I'm adding some strings to it. So format takes in the dates, right? So I'm going to say new dates. So that new date will give me the current, okay? And then I have to pass in the format of the dates that I want. So I'll use YYY, that's for year, MM, that's for month, DD. All right, so that's for that. And then I'm going to use this escape character and say HH for time now, MM and SS. All right, so I hope this works. Let's add that to our log. So I'm going to come here and then put that date time here. All right, so we run our code npm run watch, everything's working, and we hit the routes. What do we see? We see the date and tab. That's the escape character you saw here. It's for tab. All right. So you see the tab and then you see the time here. Looks cool, right? Yeah, it does. Okay. So this is how you most likely see your dates. Okay. If you visit our site, right, we get this logged to the console. But if it's being logged to the console, it's not of much use to us, right? We want to have a log file. I can put it here. All right, .txt. So I want to have a log file where whenever there's a visit to my site, it will be read into that file. All right. So that's it. So whenever somebody logs or tries to access my API, it will log into that file. So that way it persists. All right. So we want to be able to, if somebody reports an error on our server, I was trying to call this endpoint or something happened, we can just go to our log file, search for that date where the person reported the error, right? And then see what endpoint was called. Okay. All right, so we're going to proceed. So let's try to implement the part that has to do with uh, files. All right. So I'm going to make use of FS right? As a lot of you might have guessed. So that's FS. I'm going to make use of promises from the FS module. So we're going to use FS promises. Okay. So require FS also, but then there's a promises part of it. Okay. So now how do we make use of that? So I'm going to copy this guy out of here, this string out of here, and call it log, right? And then what I want to do is to run a try catch block because this is going to be an asynchronous operation. So I want to run a try catch block on it. Right? Check if, all right, there's a function called exist sync. Okay. The reason why I'm using this is to check if a file exists. All right. So return true if the path exists or false otherwise. That's what this guy does. All right. So it takes a path and then, we give it the path. So we're going to make use of path when dealing with file paths. Okay. Because we want our file paths to work between operating systems. All right. We don't want to write path like this dot forward slash log dot txt, for instance. We write a path like this if the server is running on Unix, all right, or Linux, or Windows. You're going to have different type of file paths. One of them uses backward slash, one uses forward slash. All right, so we use the path model, all right, to take care of that discrepancy. All right. So whatever fails file exists. So what I want to do is path.join. All right. So I want to go for the dir name out of the source, right? That's why I'm doing this. And then I'm looking for log. All right. So I'm looking for log.txt. Okay. So if that file exists, all right, I want to do something. Okay, and if not, I want to do something else. All right. So let me see. So after your try, you have to catch, right? And that's why we're seeing that red squiggly. All right. So that block is correct. So now what I want to do is I want to await fs promises, right? This guy that we required here. I want to make a directory. If the file exists, no, if the file doesn't exist, that's when I want to make directory. But if the file exists, I want to simply append, right? That's what should happen. So I'll say append file, path.join, and then we use their name. So I'm trying to make this guy if it doesn't exist. Okay. So I'm going out of src. I want it to be in the root directory. And then I'll say log.txt. All right, that's text format. Okay. And then I could give it a name if I want. But let me just stop here. All right. Yeah. So let's stop here. So I'm going to say what do I want to append? So if you check this module, it says module now. Let's click on it. It's the handler and then the data. All right. But then if we don't have that handler, we just put the data there. So what's the data? We want the log to go in. All right. And I think that's about that. And if that path doesn't exist, then we want to create. All right. So fs promises dot append file, not append now, dot make directory, path dot join, dir name, comma. I want to go outside. I want to say log dot txt. All right. So there you go. I hope that there is no error in this code. And if there is an error thrown, let's just log that error to the console. So now we're going to test what I've written and see if it works. So let's try. Now, if I send a request, let's check the txt file. Nothing was put into it. So let's try and debug what's happening. So I'm going to say console.log file exists. All right, because if this condition was fulfilled, then the file exists. It means that the problem might be with this our code. But if it wasn't fulfilled, then the file doesn't exist. Then the problem might be with this. So that's how to debug. Right? Log, it means there was no error code. And we see that file exists, but then there was an error. So illegal operation on the directory. All right, open blah 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 blah. Okay. So yeah, I know what's happening there. So what we needed to do, this is a directory, not a file. So this is supposed to be a directory. Sorry. This is supposed to be a directory. This is supposed to be a directory. All right, not a file. So we're giving a file path at the end. So what we'll do is, let's get rid of this. I'm going to delete this guy from here. And we should be working with directories, not files. So I'm going to say logs because we're going to have different types of logs. So let's have a directory called logs. And then let's also have a directory called logs here. All right. And at this point of, so append file, what do we do? Let's give it a name. At the point of append file, let's give it a name. This is append file, all right? So we're going to say let's say routes logs. All right, that's going to be the name of the file. So at the point of making directory, we make the directory. So I'm going to change this logic. I'm going to change this logic to do this. So if it doesn't exist, all right, if it doesn't exist, make directory. All right, and then do this. Okay, so that makes more sense. So I'm going to explain what I've just done now. So I get rid of this else statement. And what I've just done now is, if this directory does not exist, make a directory and then go ahead to append the file. All right, as simple as that. If it doesn't exist, make the directory and append the file. All right, but if it exists, then this would not run. It will just go ahead to append the file. So let's see if that works now. No, oh, no such file or directory. So where is that? Route logs. Let's go there now. Route log. Sorry, I have to do the same thing here. Now make directory, yeah, logs. Who is speaking? I can't hear you. Your line is breaking. So I think I got this wrong. Logs. Okay, so let's delete this folder. And then let's see if we are correct. Run the file again. So I think it worked. Let's check if it did. Logs, route logs, and we have this inside of it. All right, so I've created our own logger middleware. All right, I've created our own logger middleware. The truth is that you don't want to do this. So I did this for two reasons. Number one, to show you how to create your own logger middleware. That's one. Number two, to also let you that you might not need to do it. All right. The reason is because it has already been done for us. All right. Like I told you guys, there's a package called Morgan. So let's say npm Morgan. All right. You see how many million downloads it has. So this is being used very much by the ecosystem, JavaScript ecosystem or Node ecosystem. All right. So you don't have to recreate it again. All right. The only reason that you should recreate it is to test your ability. That's the only reason. But if you are working on a project, well, I can assure you that this is going to be more efficient than whatever you plan to create. All right. Not by way of insult, right? Because you can see the evidence here. All right. This number of developers downloading it weekly. You should know that it's tested and trusted, built 4 years ago. So there are many issues that might have been reported. You can report an issue, and then the members of the collaborators, I think this is managed by just one person, so I can see here. All right, they're going to look into it and resolve it. So it has gone through several rounds of all right. So that is it. So how do we make use of Morgan? To make use of Morgan, I can simply install Morgan. All right. So let's install Morgan. So npm I Morgan. Then let's go back here to our app. So we know that we're going to need Morgan here. So what I'm doing is let's get in Morgan const right Morgan. And then let's go through. So you can see Morgan tiny. All right. Or when you mean tiny, you mean you're trying to tell Node.js the how do I put it? The amount of information you want. All right. That's what it means by tiny. All right. So when you say tiny, it means you don't need enough of information logged. But then you can also format it and say you want the method all right, for that request, the URL for the request, the status of the request, right, the response to respond in milliseconds. So that's the format, all right? So we can write this, so we can start trying to write this now into our own custom middleware. It's not going to be impossible, but it's going to take your time and it might be error prone. So you want to use something that we have already pre-done for us. All right. So let's try to use Morgan in our code. So you do app.use Morgan and then format. You can say tiny, you can say combined, you can put a custom, whatever. So let's just try to make use of that. So let's go back to our code. So instead of use custom Morgan, let's comment that out. And let's use Morgan app.use Morgan and this formatted string. All right, so let's see if that works. So I'm going to try to, let's start our app, npm run watch. Okay, and let's try to access that route again. I click on that. There you go. It follows exactly the format. It shows us that the request was a GET request. It was a request to /books. The status code is 200 and it took so and so time. All right. So it follows that format. App.js follows that format. So if I had said tiny, let's see what difference it would have made. So let's click on this and you see that it actually gave us the same result. All right. So instead of writing that custom, we can use tiny. And then if we use combined, is that correct? Combined, yes. So if we use combined, let's see what it would have done for us. So we call, and then you see it's giving us much more information. Now it's telling us where the request was made from. That's brilliant. All right. It's telling us that this request is coming from Thunder client. Now, this is not magic happening by Morgan. This is why I teach like this. So that my students don't go out thinking that, oh, it's just some geniuses writing these things that you can never get to that point. No, these guys are guys like me and you, although they are very smart, we can't take that out, of the equation. But there are guys like me and you, right? All this information you're seeing here are available. That's why they have access to it. They're available within your request. That's why they have access to it. Let's try something. Let's go back to server. No, let's use our app, right? And let's console log request. I want to console log this request. And let's go into that request. So you can even decide to write your own Morgan after now, upload it to npm. And if anybody thinks it's worth using, they're going to use it. All right, so let's kill this terminal and open a new one. New terminal. And then npm run watch. And let's try to call this endpoint. All right, bring this guy back up. So I wanted to show you the request object. Now, if you check the request object really well, just go up. So you see this guy there, peer name dot address. What is that? This is it. All right, family. So you can see the port where even this thing was made from, the IP version, and then you see the address where it came from. It came from localhost, so that's why you're seeing this address here like this. Pair name. Now let's go to Morgan. Let's see what Morgan logged out for us. If there's anything similar from what Morgan logged. See the log from Morgan. Let's see. I think it's after this. See the log from Morgan. Are you seeing that guy? That's the address we just saw now from peer name. That's the address we just saw now from peer name. This address, this one here, this guy. That's what we're seeing from Morgan. All right. See date. We can actually achieve this date format using date FNS. Okay. See method. We can get the method simply from this request URL. If you check well, right, you can see the method. Let's check if we can get the method. All right. Oh, these guys are distracting. We can actually get the method if you search properly. You're going to see method get. All right. So that's a no-brainer. And then, of course, we've been getting these guys since. Even the protocol, you can get it. The status code, why not? You can get it. All right. And you see, everything you see here coming from Morgan, they are already available inside of the request object. So Morgan is just taking advantage of the request object and then using it in a unique way. All right. So this is how you create packages. You just think about it. Oh, I think it would be nice if we can log like this, and then you do something very efficient, put it on NPM, and people are making use of it. All right. It doesn't require too much genius to make, although a lot of us are just, we don't have time. And when you think about a problem to solve, somebody has already solved it, and you just relax. All right. But then I'm just trying to let you guys know that it is possible. So that's Morgan for you. And a lot of guys use Morgan in their production environment, all right, as opposed to writing your own custom logger. Okay, so now what could we have done with Morgan? So let's go back to the documentation and see. All right, vanilla, blah, 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 blah. See. So you want to write logs to file. So what we just did with our own custom logger, let's see how to do Morgan. All right, so we need the path module, we need the FS module, just like what we did. And then you say access logs from fs.create write stream. So you create a stream, and this is the file name. You see, we did all this path.join, blah, blah, blah. All right. And then when you say app.use Morgan, you provide a stream for it. And just like that, you have it done. So let's try. So I'm going to copy this and then go back to our app.js right before Morgan. This is our app. I don't know why they're using var. Guys, not using var. All right, and then I come here and say Morgan. I'm just gonna copy it. All right, and paste just like that. So let's try to make this guy use our, we want to make it use our logs folder. Okay, so I'm going to go out of here and then we're going to say, all right, so go out and use your logs folder. So I'm going to save that. So what might be wrong? FS. Oh, we don't have FS here. So let's export FS. Once FS equals require FS, the next guy is going to be path. All right, require path. Save. And there you go. Why are you waiting? So there is no, you cannot find that guy, right? So I understand. So let's just create it so that I can find it, because I don't have the time to write that logic. I would say if you don't find it, blah, blah, blah. All right, so let's just create it and see. It's still not finding it. So, oops, on app, and app is outside. No, app is inside SRC. What does it mean? Oh, I know what's happening. So I'm going to get rid of this guy because it's going out of our project. Or is it? It's actually not. All right, let's see. Let's try again and see what the problem might be. So npm run watch. All right. So no such file or directory. Okay. So revision is this folder. Logs is here. Access.log is there. So what are you saying? What are you saying, man? What are you saying? Should we get rid of this? Oh, I see the problem. Oh, I think I've seen the problem. So let's get rid of this guy. Yeah, it works now. These things can be tricky, man. So app is inside SRC. So we didn't need to come out of SRC, right? So app is here, and this is the app file. So we're looking for logs, and logs is just right here. Okay, so we didn't need to go out of that file. All right, so that's been resolved. Send, and I think it did work. If we check our access log, we see this guy logged into it. All right, so you can see that we successfully created our own middleware and then went ahead to implement one that already exists. So let me get rid of this console log from our where DAO logging the request. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Sorry. So now we send again, go back to our log, you see the second request. All right. If I go to the browser, let's try that. So I'm going to copy this guy to get request I can do from the browser and send this. It runs. So let's go back to our log, check, see that. That came from the browser, from a MacBook, Intel, blah, blah, blah. And then you can see it came from Chrome. All right. And then within Chrome, this guy also requested for favicon. All right. So you can see every request that comes to the server gets logged here. So when somebody comes to you, the backend developer, and says, oh, I was trying to do so and so and so and so and so, but then I got an error. You just come to your log file and you see what might have occurred. All right. So let's try something. Let's try book search. And we see that we get a 404. I see now. The request came to our server because actually it was our server was hit, but then the server did not recognize this book. Okay. So a 404 error, you can check the top of the browser and you see that it's an error. All right. A 404 error was returned from the server. And then that error is also logged. That's the response code. The others have been 200, 200, 200. They were successful. But when it wasn't successful, it was a 404. A 404. All right. You see that it came from a MacBook. And it came from Chrome. All right. So yeah, I think that should be clear by now why you need a log file. Okay, so this is just an example of middleware. All right, there are many middlewares online and there are many that we can create. Let's say, for example, we want to handle post requests to books. All right, so how might we do that? So this file is going to get very ugly very soon. So let me get rid of this custom middleware from here and make use of our folders that we created. I'm gonna delete this guy in here. All right. And so we need a controller. All right. So what we're going to do is create book dot controller books dot controller dot js, right? And inside here, we're going to cut this out of here, bring it to here, and give it a name. So let's call it get all books. All right. And here we module that exports an object that has get all books in it. Inside app.js, we simply get all books. Then imported here and used here. So everything still works. Okay. So that is that. So that's for get all books. So let's do post. All right, post slash books. So there's a request to slash books, a post request. How do you want to handle it? So I want to say create books, right? So I'm going to come here and function create book request. I'm going to export this from here. Console log book creation request received. In fact, no, let's not console log, let's respond. Rest dot status 201. When you create something, use 201. So you need to read about status codes. Okay. And then JSON. So our JSON is going to be JSON object that says message. All right. Create book request to see. So create book. We come here and we use that. So it's been imported or required. All right. So now if we do a post request to books, we should get book creation request received. But before that, we want a middleware. Let me show you how that might work. Until now, what we've been doing is we have a middleware that is global. So this middleware would run before any other guy you see below it will run. That's what we've done. This one would run before these two guys are run. All right, so the middlewares are going to run in order, all right, in which they were created. Fine, let me take this guy. This is a variable creation. It's not a middleware, so let's not confuse things. So I'm going to put it here. All right, so let me just variables. Let's make this different. Express app. Let me see variables. All right, so you can call it states. Okay. So let's just use variables. All right, and then I will have our middlewares here. And then we have our routes. All right, so that's the order with which things are going to execute in this file. Okay. So these middlewares we're written here are going to be executed regardless of the route you are trying to reach. Okay. But if we want, based on the route you want to reach, we have to add it here. And how do we do that? Say, for instance, I only want to log when users visit get books route. So I'll copy this entire middleware, all right, and put it here. So what happens is that this middleware is going to run before this. So it will go from left to right. So books, I want to get books, then this would run and this would run. So if I save now and requires a middleware function. Oh, let's get it out of there first. All right, so everything's working. And then watch now. We are now saying that Morgan should only work for the get route. So let me delete everything I have in the log. I'm gonna delete all this. Save. And let's try. So we try post. Post works, right? It works, but if we go to our log, nothing is logged. All right, because right here, post has no middleware, and then there's no middleware in the global space that is trying to run. All right, so nothing is logged. But if we try to use get, let's use the get route and send. It works, but then you discover that the middleware ran. Okay, so if you want a middleware to be just route specific, then you have to put it before the handler for the route. All right. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to put it back to the global space because we want to log for every request that comes in. But here we want to validate a user's request. So let's just call this weak validator. As a weak validator. Just okay. So we're going to do function validate it's for lack of brain power to think of a better name. So I'm going to say res and next, right? So let's just call next immediately so that we don't forget. Then we start writing. All right. So what do we want to do? When the user requests, so we're going to get the request, we call it data equals to rec.body. So we get the data from the body of the request. And we're going to check for two things. All right. So let's say if data.title, let's say not data.title and not data.author, what we want to do is to press.status 400. All right, say JSON. I want to say error, and we say user, sorry, say book title, or you must, not you must, book title required. So let's say book title and author required. Okay, so that's what we respond with. So these are our validates middleware. Let's export it from here. So I'm going to module.export. Let's just make it a default export. Okay. So export, instead of exporting it in an object, let's just make it default. All right, so let's go to app, and then we want to use that middleware here. So that middleware is called what? Validate books create. Okay. So I'm gonna put it here. Validate books create. And we need to import it or require it in this file. So there you go. It has been required. All right. Let's see if it works. I'm going to try to run this without putting anything in the body. All right, let's try to run the post. Let's go back. So what this is supposed to be in the post request. Sorry, post. Okay. Let's try to run this now. And you see book title and author required. All right. So it says cannot set headers after. I'm really, really sorry. So we're not supposed to make responses from our middleware. All right. So what we could do is, there are different things we could write, but we can just say, we'll throw an error. All right. We can throw an error from here. Okay, and pass the error to the next guy. All right, so we could do that. Pass the error to the next guy. Or we could actually pass it to the next guy and have the next guy handle it, which is the next middleware or handler. All right. That is one way we can do it. But then we have this returning actually, and it works. It works, but the problem is that if you come here to this other guy, let's go back to this guy. If you come here to create book, we are trying to send status. All right, so we're still trying to send status after the header has already been sent. That's why you are getting this error. All right, so you won't be able to do that. I think that we could get error from here. Am I correct? I think we could get error from there. So let's try something. But I'm so is it? This is going to be seen as next because that's for middleware. But I next here and then log the error here. So let's see error being logged. So I'm going to save that and I'll come here back to create book. And instead of logging the error, we're going to throw an error. So I'm going to say where are we going? Validator. So instead of respond, I'm going to throw an error. So I'm going to say throw new error. Now this error is coming from JavaScript. All right, that's how you throw errors, or you make an error happen. That's how you make errors happen. All right. So if this didn't work out, we're going to throw error, and then that error is going to be passed into next. Okay. Let's see if that works. All right. So you see that error being logged, book title and author required. So I handled the error gracefully. But then we're going to talk about proper error, maybe in the next class, we're going to talk about proper error handling. But now you can see that I'm actually handling the error. So if an error happens within our middleware, right, we can simply just something that is not allowed happens. For instance, the user did not pass in title and author. So we throw an error by ourselves, and then that error is going to be cached and sent to the next handler. And if in our process of things, after validate books, this is the next handler. That's create book. And then you see that we're logging it here. So if you're expecting an error, you can capture it in the first guy. But then this has to be 4 because there are conventions, in Node.js. So when we talk about error handling, you understand why I have to make this 4 parameters. All right. When we talk about error handlers, we're going to talk about that. Okay, so I handle the error here, and you see that error being logged, error. So if you check here, you see error being logged, and then the error. What's the error? Book title and author required, as we actually specified here. All right, there you go. So that's the error. So our validator is working. It validates the data, and if there is no proper data, then we throw an error, and it is being handled here. Okay. All right. So now we want to do something. All right. We can actually, what was I going to do? Validator. So let's try and see if that validator will still run. So there's an error here. So I have to restart again. So if we provide everything correctly, is that going to run? So I'm going to say title, Austin, author, who said author cannot still be Austin. So if I send, you see that we received our question request. Error is not defined. So why is, let's see, title author, TITLEAUTHOR. Let's check here. What are we looking for? Enter the title. So we have to rewrite this. So we're going to say if there's an error, you call this else. Next, next. Just try again. The error is somehow. Oh. I see the problem. So we come back here and let's see. We are always logging error. So always logging error here. All right. And we don't want to do that. So we can say if there's an error, right? So let's come back to this and then just do what we have done before and then come back here and only log the error if there's an error. So if error, all right, and we log the error. Okay, so now we shouldn't see that error anymore. Oh, it's still being logged up. Error is not defined. Okay, so I'm just going to remove it. I'm just going to remove it from here. Okay, so if we check now, we are getting our response properly. All right, so I'm going to talk about error handling. This thing is forcing me to dabble into error handling, but I don't have enough time today. But then you can also read about it before the next class. Let's see. So you can handle errors actually by server. So you come to the server and then, app, right? And then you put a middleware here. So you can just write a middleware somewhere here, app.use, and then put the middleware error, reg, press, and next. No, not next. We're not calling next on anything. So at this point, this is where you handle the error. All right, so you now say rest.json or rest.status will be 500 server error, and then you send your message JSON, send error. All right, and the error would be the error that I called if you like. All right, so that's the way to handle error, but I'm going to talk about it in our next meeting. All right, but for now, today we successfully wrote a validator for an incoming request. And then we also wrote, so a middleware to validate incoming request. And this could be anything. All right, so use your logical mind to expand this to do anything, to validate anything. All right. And it will interest you to know that we also have libraries, right, that do right, better than you would, so you can explore them. All right, and also we're able to write a custom login middleware, custom logger middleware, and also use one that already exists. All right. So in the next class, we're going to talk about authentication. All right. So the content of that class will be how to use Postman, how to configure Postman, how to write some tests or some scripts inside of Postman to make some requests. So I'm going to be getting quite familiar with Postman in this class, and how to do proper authentication. All right, so JWT, cookies, and some of those things. So we'll be talking about them in the next class. So I'm going to take your questions before I run along. Yeah, we had some questions before now. So let's see. Let's start from the top, right? A lot of concepts are still alien. Okay, I think I adjust that. It's a list of concepts to learn. Don't worry, you get that. When do you use URL parser? So URL parser is used for URL. So when you're sending requests in the URL, you can use URL parser for that. I think if you follow the classes, previous classes, there was a class where we submitted form, like it gets requests from a form, and we used URL parser. All right, so that URL parser is for stuff like that. When there's data in the URL, you want to grab it from the URL, you use URL parser. All right, and that's it. JSON is for body, when you have data in the body of the request. So if you have not gone to look at this, please look at it. It says, why can't we use a single file and Express to create and listen for? Why do you need to use Express on a different file and export to server? Like I said, separation of concerns. And when we start writing tests, this is also going to make more sense to you when you start writing tests. Because when you start writing tests, in your test file, you want to have access to your app. But if that app is just your server, it's just living here, right? It's just living here locally. You won't be able to have access to it in your tests. All right. But if app is, you know, put somewhere else, right? If it is hosted on its own path, what you can do is that the server can refer to app. Both your test can refer to app, right? App is like the engine for all your requests. So your server is using it and your tests can also use it. That's why we have to separate it and put it somewhere else. And if you understand how we structure projects, right, in programming, when you have a file that is useful in more than one place, or you have a functionality that is useful in more than one place, to avoid repeating yourself, all right, following the dry principle, you have to remove that file from that place or that function from that folder, put it in a separate place where everybody can have access to it. So whenever you need to reuse it, you just simply import it and make use of it. All right, that's why we're hosting app in a separate file. Okay. So say please add promises and other JS content to the list. All right. So yeah, I could do that. What I'll do is my cookbooks are going to contain all these things. So I can get your request, right? If you have something that confuses you, all right. So this is like more like a win-win situation here. You have something that confuses you, you can send it to the group, all right. And then I'm going to compile the list and I'm going to make cookbooks for all of them and post it on my LinkedIn. All right. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. All right. So that when I post, you're going to see it and you'll be able to have access to it. All right. I'm trying to encourage myself to post more and increase my own visibility on the internet. All right. You're welcome. Thank you so much, HP. It says if the user is currently active, what's that? If the user is currently active, offline or dormant, that might be referring to, I don't know. So why is calling custom Morgan asynchronous? It is asynchronous because we are using await inside of it. So if you check, there is await here. So if you are using await inside of any function, because this is a promise, all right? So if you are dealing with a promise, you use await to wait for the response of the promise. That means if you want this to be fulfilled before you move forward, all right? You could even have done this without the FS promises, okay? So try and catch, all right? Okay, so why is calling synchronous more than, okay, I think I've answered that, all right? That's why I say synchronous. Do we compulsorily need to write our own middlewares? Can we always use the available middleware there? So I think I answered that, yeah. So there are times when you don't want a bloated package? And that's a very important question. So for instance, you want to do something, but there's a package that exists, and that package does a lot of things, but you just want a tiny bit of it, right? Some will argue that you just import the package, that means install the package and import only what you need. But well, there's still some, things that we can argue about that, but then that also works. But what you can do is avoid installing the package entirely and just take what you want. So you just decide what you want and do it yourself. All right. So there's some very basic thing you want to do. Maybe your package, your not package now, your server or your software has a unique case. It has a unique use case, and you just need to check for something. All right. And that is what you can do on your own. You just write a custom middleware and then use it. So you don't need to install something that already exists that is just bloated, and you don't need all the functionalities. You just need something very niche to what you want. You create it yourself and you use it. All right. So that's a use case where you need to create. It's not compulsory. But if you have a use case where you can simply do it yourself, all right, and it is just specific to your server at that point, you can create a custom middleware. But if it's something that is already being solved and widely used, you don't need to create your own. Just use the one that's already available in the ecosystem. Are there guidelines for folder management in backend development to implement separation of concern and prevent confusion with the folders? Yes. So that's what is called the MVC framework. So the MVC framework is like a English. So the MVC framework is like a pattern, all right, that has been adopted for creating backend apps. But then other variations, have also come out. So you can say MVC. So you can check for MVC framework, all right? And then you can also say alternatives to MVC framework. Those are ways that you can search for other frameworks that exist for ordering or structuring your all right. Even this MVC, personally, I don't use MVC like as it is, outlined. It's a mix of my own way and MVC. All right. So sometimes, why is my controller far from my routes? I want my controller to be with my routes. Then I simply bring my controllers. I don't have a controller folder. I bring all my controllers inside my route. That's me. All right. And then I collocate them in folders. Okay. So these things are not straitjacket stuff, right? You can read about it, or you understand how it works, and then you adopt it for your team. All right. And as long as it's useful between you and your team, you will be fine. All right. So just browse MVC framework or some alternatives to it, and you should be good. Okay. So any other question before I leave the question? Tough for the okay. All right. So I think that we are good. Thank you guys for your time. I'll see you in the next class. I'm sorry the video came late. The video for the last class came late. I'm sorry, guys. Please, it's up now and you can check. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.